What's up, Steelers fans? Right off the bat, I just want to say this is the most fun I've had watching a Steelers game in easily years now. It was a complete performance from all three phases. Obviously, the headline being Russell Wilson's first start as the Steelers quarterback, and what a first start it was. I think tonight we saw a quarterback who was reading defenses. He was finding the soft spot. He was taking what was given to him. He was passing the test the way the test is meant to be taken. And that's not to take anything away from Fields. The dynamicism that his athleticism provides to your offense, it's hard to replicate that. But the ability to just drop back and complete 15-yard passes over the middle, just drop back, count the safeties, determine where the weakness in that particular zone is going to be, and just, drop it right there. Or to drop back, recognize man coverage, and just, I'm going to throw it over his shoulder, and either the defender runs through my man and gives us a pass interference penalty, or my guy catches up to it. And you saw that happen twice tonight on those chase balls, one that Pickens pulled in and the other that Freiermuth did. I think those were both third down plays, actually. Wilson's first pass, the play action boot, I feel like Fields would have taken off on that. He started to roll out and a guy was in his face. I feel like Fields would be challenged by that, and he would feel like, I have to before I can do anything else with this play, I have to get around this guy. I have to beat this guy. So I think he would have taken off on that play. And, that's what I'm saying. The athleticism, the play that he does make gives you, 5 yards. But the play that he's not making, the play that he's passing up on because he's taking off on that play, he could be passing up on the 15, 20, 25-yard play. So that was a good job by Russ of keeping his eyes up and then getting some air under that ball to get it over the pass rush there. I think the stats will ultimately back this up, but just to the eye test, it looked like the play action pass was much more effective for the Steelers tonight. I don't think Justin Fields was doing a great job of selling it. I don't think he's a great actor. That's not necessarily in his repertoire. Later on, when the run game started to get clicking on its own, I think the threat of that also, started to snowball those two effects together. And ultimately, it piled up into a 100-yard day on the ground for Najee Harris. The deep ball from Wilson was fantastic to see. The first one that he put up there, I didn't expect that one to be reeled in, but Pickens did a good job of adjusting to that ball in the air. Pickens has had some chances like that in recent weeks that he's let clang off his hands, but not tonight. The first one he ended up pulling in, he drew a couple pass interference flags. He got them scared of him real early on, and they were playing him a little rough because of that. Sauce Gardner, I think he got away with one a little bit early, and then he was getting up in Pickens' face and spitting out his mouth guard because he had, stuff he had to say to him. He had shit to talk. I like how Pickens responded to that by just letting his game do the talking. He got the better of Gardner a number of times a little bit later on. But it was good to see George finish with the touchdown after his pass interference set them up deep in the Jets' territory there. Kind of bailed Russ out, actually, with a good piece of hands. Russ needs that ball to be in the back corner of the end zone, on the back shoulder for Pickens. He left it out on the front shoulder. If the defender had been in zone defense, he would have had a great chance to make a play on that ball. But because he's in man coverage, he's got his back to the passer. He doesn't know when to react to it. He doesn't know when or where the ball's coming in. So that's advantage Pickens. He's able to go up over the top, just grab it, and then get his hands back, keep them clean so that the defensive back isn't able to play through the hands. So at halftime in this game, Wilson was at a 47% pressure rate. That means almost half of the time that he was dropping back to pass, he had a guy in his face looking to take him out. I think he acquitted himself pretty well under pressure, and that was one of the biggest knocks on him coming into the game, is how, Wilson's going to get killed behind this patchwork offensive line because he can't run away from anyone anymore. That's not new. Justin dealt with that same level of adversity, and let's also not forget that the level of pass catchers for this offense has not been plussed, as of yet, at least. There's still time until the deadline. This game in itself is not a referendum on which of these quarterbacks is better and which one should be playing moving forward. It's certainly hard to take the reins out of Wilson's hands at this point, and that was more than you could say after any of Fields' performances this year. He didn't have any of these signature sort of wins, these dominant wins, these complete performances. Into the second half we go, and there was another insane catch from George Pickens. This was their first third down conversion of the night. He had his guy beat by a mile, and Russ might have put just a bit too much under it. If he lays this in front out there a bit more, George might be off to the races, but George has to kind of slow down and wait for it. Everyone wanted to talk about Justin Fields' completion percentage when they were trying to make a case for him, and tonight Wilson was barely over 50%. But outside of a couple really bad misplaced throws early in this game, I think those were mostly smart incompletions, smart throwaways, living to fight another down kind of stuff. And he made the most of the ones he did connect on. The deep ball was clicking tonight, but more importantly, he had the intermediate stuff going, and that's where your offense really needs to live if you're going to be a passing team. Najee with another 100-yard rushing game, his second in as many weeks, thanks to that last second fourth down touchdown. It was good to see him get that makeup call after giving himself up at the 1 yard line against the Chargers at the end of that game. In the last couple of weeks, it seems like Najee has added a new little thing to his bag of tricks. Instead of always either trying to run over you or jump over you, he's now added this new concept of around you into the mix. So he's juking dudes, he's breaking ankles. He made Chris Collinsworth spit out his coffee at one point tonight. It's literally brought a whole new dimension to his run game. Jaylen Warren also did some nice things tonight. Had a couple weighty conversions. Calvin Austin had one too. Van Jefferson finally getting some love, got in the end zone. It's good to see him being used as more than just a pawn to bring in motion and reveal if the defense is in man or zone coverage. He's been wasting a lot of energy doing that nonsense. He's been getting a lot of hate around here. People think he's not worthy of being a wide receiver 2, even though I think he's more of a 3 with Austin being the 2. Well, he's probably a 4 with Pat being the 2 and then Austin being the 3. But either way, I don't think people realize that less than 3 calendar years ago, Van Jefferson was the wide receiver 2 on a Super Bowl winning team with the Rams. Of course, they signed OBJ down the stretch there to supplement their run. But Jefferson was a big part of that year. He had over 800 receiving yards. He had the second most yards and receptions for that team. And he specifically in the Super Bowl, he was a big part of that game. 4 receptions on 8 targets. Only Cooper Kupp drew more targets in that Super Bowl from Matt Stafford. So I anticipate big things are coming Van Jefferson's way with his offense seemingly starting to blossom. On the defensive side of the ball, I think the Steelers defense did a good job of stifling a very potent passing attack, especially one that was getting the ball out as fast as they were. I thought the Steelers pass rush did a good job of, when they weren't getting home, elevating into passing lanes. TJ was able to have a big knockdown, Benton on a 4th down late in the game. But early in this game, Larry Ogunjobi kicked off the affairs with a sack. I thought this was a coverage sack. Things looked pretty locked up downfield. It looked like cover 3 on the back end. 3 deep zones, 4 intermediate zones. And they held it down for a long time before Larry was able to loop around and dump Rodgers for that first sack of the game there. The personal foul on him was a killer. It didn't need to happen. He was stood up with 3 Steelers right there. You didn't have to spin him down. I think if that spin move, that tackle happens in a vacuum, that's not necessarily the penalty. I think it was the combination of that and how long had passed since he had been stood up. I would have liked to see that call go both ways a number of times, once to Najee, and again they did it to Pickens, where Steelers were spun down in similar fashions, and they did not get the benefit of the doubt. I led off the show talking about how happy I was watching this game. I will say I did get pretty pissed off at one point during that sequence that led to their second score, the one that involved the 2-point conversion there. I'm 90% sure that challenge flag was on the field by the time the ball was snapped. And I don't think it matters if he threw it or if he just dropped it, because we've seen Mike Tomlin just drop flags on the fields, and that's considered, okay, you're challenging it. Does it matter if you throw it or if you drop it? Like, why does if the flag's out, the flag's out. If it's on the field, it's on the field. You're challenging that play. And it's ridiculous for Aaron Rodgers to say, hey, coach, challenge that for me. Just kidding. I'm going to run this play right here. What are you doing? You're running that organization as a quarterback. It's a clown times organization. It's a bonker times team. You're the quarterback. You're the coach. You're the owner. You're recruiting players from other teams to come play for your team. How is that not tampering? Doesn't matter. This guy gets away with it all. There was one play that I put on Twitter where both Cam Hayward was taken to the ground by a hold, and TJ had cleanly swum over a guy who, instead of being beat, hooked him with his other arm, and TJ's trying to jump over him, get out of the way of that. This is both happening on one play. Rodgers gets a completion over the middle to Garrett Wilson. They call it a clean first down. Nobody mentions it. I don't believe for 1 second that Dan Moore wouldn't get called for this penalty. The only difference is he's not protecting Aaron Rodgers. Football isn't as bad with it as they are in the NBA with the superstar rules, guys getting a special whistle just for them. But, it's so obvious with all the money that the NFL has tied up in quarterbacks and all the rule changes to protect the quarterbacks, who they want to succeed, who they want to see succeed. And it's not the guys on the defensive side of the ball, even though a lot of them get paid very well too. But they'd rather see Aaron Rodgers put on a show than have a signature TJ Watt game, have him with 3.5 sacks coming through. To me, I don't know if this is just me being a football wonk, but it's just as interesting to me if a football player is putting on a show. If he threw 3 touchdowns, it's just as interesting if you have a guy who got 3 sacks in that game. It's not necessarily more fun the more points there are on the board. You can have a really great low scoring football game. And the same is true of baseball. And a lot of people who aren't hardcore fans of these two sports look at these two things and think they're boring. Same as people who aren't hardcore fans of soccer say, why would I watch a game that could end 0-0, could end 1-0? Because you don't understand the nuance of all the things that happen within that game. To some people, that's fun. To some people, it's not. That's fine. If it's not your cup of tea to watch a defensive slogfest, then there are plenty of alternative football leagues. There's basketball. They sure have a lot of scoring over there. You can watch that. I don't understand why these sports leagues are catering to the casual fans by just trying to promote, brainless scoring instead of catering to the hardcore fans by, honoring the integrity of the game the way that it was devised originally, the way we've been playing it for decades. Stop trying to spin it to fit the millennial attention span. So all that was to say that the Jets' second touchdown should not have counted, and they were bailed out again on the blocked extra point with that phantom leverage call. I think everyone in the broadcast, even the rules expert, were baffled by that one. They thought that was a blown call. Fortunately, the Steelers were able to make that up later with a Dean Lowry block of a field goal. So I guess it's better to take the 3-point block rather than just the 1 point. They had talked a number of times how good this Danny Smith team is at blocking kicks. Well, I can think of at least 3 of them since that, going back to that Green Bay game a couple years ago. Blocked kicks that have been taken off the field erroneously for nonsense penalties that should count additionally in their file. But defensively, it was the Beanie Bishop show. I owe him a huge apology after ragging on him pretty hard in recent weeks. His first one, dude picked off Aaron Rodgers one-handed in a back pedal, and he had to flip shoulders, which shoulder he was looking over. That was a Willie Mays level catch right there. And this guy plays defense. He's not even known for his hands. It looked like they were in cover 2 on that play, maybe a Tampa 2. Rodgers was expecting the underneath zone to kind of drop off of his guy, but he stuck with him. He read it, and he was able to make the one-handed catch. That was the right read and throw to make against that D, but Bishop just had the upper hand there, made the better play, and you just got to tip your hat to him. That second one, though, if I'm Rodgers, now I'm pissed at you, Beanie Bishop. Because that one should have been a nice completion to me. Should have been right into the honey hole up the left sideline. But instead it takes a crazy bounce. And by the way, the Steelers were due for a good bounce after the 2 bounces that had gone right out of bounds on muffed punts that had benefited the Jets there. And obviously he was able to bring that one all the way back to the 1-yard line. I'm just looking up to see here if the Steelers were able to convert on that one. I can't remember off the top of my head. Let's see. Touchdown, 1 play, 1 yard. Yes, that was the quarterback sneak touchdown. Quarterback sneak worked twice for the Steelers in this game, on the goal line there, and then again on a 4th down to extend a key drive at the end of this game to keep the ball out of the hands of Aaron Rodgers and their potential playmakers. 13 plays, 75 yards, 7.5 minutes. The Steelers were able to run off at the end of this game with some ball control offense there. That's something they haven't been able to do of late. It's good to see that. I'd love to see what Deshaun Elliott is doing. He had another couple big sticks today, his biggest being on a 3rd down late in this game that obviously set up that 4th down stop, the bat down by Keanu Benton. On that Elliott play, he did a good job of getting his head and neck out of the way and getting below the target's head and neck area and delivering an assertive, convincing hit that was totally clean. That was perfect teach tape. I'm sure they're going to get that to all the outlets the NFL is, with the note saying, make sure you spend 5 minutes talking about this player's head and neck area in relation to the target's head and neck region. I just thought Wilson had this team clicking in a way that Fields we haven't seen from him. If we had seen Justin Fields put on one of those games, I don't think we would have seen Russell Wilson coming in except in a injury substitution situation. I think Justin had a chance to grab this thing by the throat and he just didn't. I think they were trying to coach him up, but he was getting more and more uncomfortable. They were giving him more and more to think about, and he just tried to fall back on instinct too much. So just to wrap it up here, we heard during the game Chris Collinsworth talking about the work ethic that Mike Tomlin and his teams always show. And that kind of flies in the face of a lot of the narratives that people around Steelers Nation have pushed about Coach Tomlin and how they play down the competition, how he doesn't push his guys, how he doesn't hold them accountable. But those of us who are in on the daily news cycle of Pittsburgh sports, who read the practice reports, know how hard these guys work each other, how hard, how intensely they work each other. They do more work in pads than most other teams do. And I think they don't shine a light on that very much, especially in this day and age where they're trying to, downplay the physicality of the sport. Actually, now that I think of it, I think Mike Tomlin quieted a lot of critics tonight with his decision to go back to the guy they had named a starter coming out of camp. His decision to take a guy off the field who had been playing okay in favor of a guy who might play well, might play poorly. That could have came back to haunt him, and Steelers fans, God bless you. You were ready to boo him at the drop of a hat there. Even after he had completed that bomb to Pickens and bought himself some credit there, the boos had started to fire up again after that third down throwaway. Even though he had set his team up for the field goal, that wasn't enough for you. You were that ready to pull the hook on him. I'm glad they stuck with him. Obviously, the way it worked out is going to be in the best interest of all parties involved, especially Steelers fans. A big win, the people who are trying to spin certain narratives in favor of Justin aren't going to like it. For some reason, these weirdos wanted the Steelers to do poorly just because they didn't like the guy who was, sticking his hands under the center's butt this week. But in spite of them, Russell Wilson got the job done. And we heard a couple instrumental One Direction songs as the broadcast was going to commercial tonight. That was a cool tribute to a young man who tragically lost his life this past week. I'm not sure how much of a crossover there is in the fandoms between One Direction and the NFL. I may be the only one who even realized the significance of those song choices, but I think there was a cool thing they did. Some guys probably got a young daughter who was, well, a little bit younger a couple years ago, and he's still trying to connect with her over it. And she's probably like, Dad, I don't even listen to them anymore. But bless his heart, he's trying. Divorce is obviously hardest on the kids, and he's being a good dad, trying to make sure she internalizes as little of that trauma as possible. So good on him. All in all, a good day for the Steelers. A lot of credit to spread around, and not a lot of nitpicking to do. So I think I'm going to get to bed early tonight. Have a good week, Steelers fans.